Hey, greetings everyone. Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. And you can see I am dressed up in my patriotic garb because guess what? In a couple of days, it's the 244th celebration of the independence of the greatest nation that the world has ever known. But July 4th, Independence Day, is even a more important day for those of us in the great state of Texas who call ourselves Republicans. Because it was July the 4th of 1867, 153 years ago, that the Republican Party of Texas was founded down in the Houston, Galveston area. And it was founded by 150 black men. 150 black men who just a couple of years prior to that, in 1865 on June 19th, found out that they were free. They found out that they had been emancipated because of a Republican president 2 years prior who had signed a document called the Emancipation Proclamation setting them free. See, that day for them was all about emancipation and how appropriate it was for them, those recently freed slaves of just 2 years prior, to start the Republican Party of Texas on Independence Day of 1867. But sadly, somehow it appears to me that Republicans here in Texas, especially those in elected positions, have forgotten the principles and values that the Republican Party stood for. Individual rights, individual freedom, individual liberty, individual sovereignty, emancipation. Because when I think about some of the things that are happening today and an executive order that was just issued down from the governor of Texas, well, this takes us back to where we were 244 years ago. Because we are not a people who are supposed to be ruled by executive order, by mandate, by edicts, by decree. We are supposed to be governed according to our rule of law. That's why we established these great United States of America, because we did not want to live under tyranny. But it seems that in just 244 short years, because we are not studying our history, we are reverting right back to people believing that the institution of government that is what we see now is more important than the individual. And that's not what Thomas Jefferson sat down and wrote about 244 years ago. Governor Greg Abbott, to say that you're going to fine individuals for not wearing something that you have decided to mandate, that's tyranny in its most purest form. That's not what people think about in Texas. That's not what people think about of America. That's not what those 150 black men who established the Republican Party of Texas on Independence Day of 1867 thought that the Republican Party would be. If you're going to declare that someone needs to wear something, then you should be providing it. And furthermore, that's not America, to mandate people to wear something. And elected officials out there, we don't need you to be out there looking out for our public health. You're supposed to be protecting our individual rights. And simply, ladies and gentlemen, because of the fact that it seems that we have forgotten who we are as America, that we have elected officials that believe that they have this enumerated power, this right to be able to declare who and what is essential, and to issue edicts, executive orders, mandates, directives. That's not part of our constitutional republic. We have a legislature that is supposed to, well, they're the ones that are supposed to create and enact the laws that govern us. When you look at what is happening on our streets, the anarchy, the chaos, our monuments being destroyed. The fact that we have students at a university in Wisconsin that say that the statue of Abraham Lincoln, the person that wrote the Emancipation Proclamation, so that those black men here in the great state of Texas in 1865 could find out they were free, and 2 years later they could create the Republican Party of Texas, that he did not do enough for blacks, and so his statue should come down. Abraham Lincoln lost his life because of what he did to free black men and women, to ensure that they became citizens, to ensure that they got to vote. And that was the legacy of the Republican Party. The legacy of America is not that we run and we hide away from a virus. The legacy of leadership in America is about we turn into our challenges. We inspire, we encourage, and we face these challenges together. We don't see it as an opportunity to coalesce power and control as we see happening even in the great state of Texas. One of the things that I tell people that they should do around this time of the year, it's not about the barbecues. It's not about the fireworks. It's not about the swimming pools. It's about understanding why we were created, why we were founded, why there is an America. And because we don't have civics being taught and the real history being taught, and there are people trying to tear down and destroy our history by way of our monuments, our memorials, I think that what I would do this evening is something that I would encourage you to do as well with your families. And that is to read the entire Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July the 4th of 1776, the Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners refusing to pass others, to encourage their migrations hither and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civilian power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress. In the most humble terms, our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by the legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of our justice and of consanguinity. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We therefore The representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, due in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we do mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Signed, the 56 men. From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, and George Walton. From North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. From South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. The man who signed the largest so that King George would see his name, John Hancock of Massachusetts. Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Parker, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton. George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, George Ross. Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKeon. New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, Abraham Clark. New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple. The rest of the Massachusetts delegation: Samuel Adams, John Adams, William Treat Payne, Elbridge Gerry. Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery. Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Walcott. In New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton. 56 men signed that document that established these great United States of America on July the 4th of 1776. 56 men signed their death warrant. 56 men decided that this great nation would be birthed because we knew what freedom was all about. In the fight for liberty, they knew that they had to take on the greatest power that the world knew at that time. How is it that in 244 short years, we have gone from that caliber of character in those 56 men? And I'm not sitting here as a black American man worried about whether or not they own slaves or not. What I know is that they created this country that I love, that I call home. What I know is that on Independence Day of 1867, 150 black men came together to create the Republican Party of Texas that I now seek to be the chairman of. See, those 56 men from 1776, those 150 men from 1867, were strong, they were courageous, they were principled, they were resilient. I don't think that a simple virus would cause them to enact tyranny and despotism against their fellow brothers and sisters, Americans or Texans. I don't think that they would cower away from something such as the COVID-19 when 244 years ago, they stood up to a great military power. See, I want everyone to understand that we are not descendants of fearful men and women. Americans, Texans, are descendants from fearless men and women. And when we have people in elected positions who would rather wield the power of tyranny and despotism instead of encouraging us to make a stand for liberty and freedom, I say it is time to ensure we cast off those binds that they have put upon us. If you take a deep breath in Texas and America right now, there's a smell that is out there, a smell that should be detestable to your nostrils. Is it that smell of tyranny, once again, that has crept into this country? You have a simple choice going forward. Either we stand for the rule of law, either we believe in these words that were written 244 years ago, either we will share these words with our families, with our communities, maybe even in our churches, if we can open up our churches and if we can have those services. But how did we get to a point where the nation that took on Great Britain would run and cower and be afraid of a virus with a 99.6 to 99.8% recovery rate? We are being forced into an irrational emotionalism. And sadly, we have elected officials. We don't have men and women of character, and we don't have leaders. I am not worried about the future of America, because I know that just as it was then, 244 years ago, it will be today that the sons and daughters of liberty will make a stand here in Texas and all across the United States of America. God bless you all. Share the words of the Declaration of Independence sometime before the clock strikes midnight on July the 4th of 2020. With that being said, let's go to some of your comments. God bless America, and we will be victorious. Juan Chen Olson, happy 90th birthday. I don't think it's my 90th birthday. You must be talking to someone else. Sam Anderson, God bless Texas. You're absolutely right. But Texas, we got a challenge. We got to make sure that we have leaders here, because I don't think we have leadership in the state of Texas right now. We have despotism. We have tyrants. We don't have people that, we should not have people that believe that they can just sign an executive order or a mandate or an edict or a directive and tell us what to do. That's what Thomas Jefferson wrote this document about. And it's time that we start to understand the difference between being in a constitutional republic and being in a place where people believe that they can rule over us by a simple pen in hand. Let's see. Terry Mendoza Harris, yes, we believe. I want you to believe. Thank you very much, Stephen Larson. Appreciate you. Crystal Copley Owen, thank you. I appreciate your support. Let's see. Wearing masks is not a law. Christine Jolly Little, you're absolutely right. It is not a law. Laws are passed through a legislative process. What we see right now is a tyranny coming from the governor's mansion, even here in the great state of Texas. If this is something that is deemed necessary, then call for a special session, bring the legislature back, let them debate it, and let it go before the people. But don't just do it by the stroke of what you believe is right. That's not how you govern. That's called rule. Let's see. Terry Mendoza Harris, thank you. I will continue to fight for you. Thank you, Angie Leonard. Appreciate you. Tina Fitzmaurice Molo, God bless you too as well. Eddie Rawls, we need more black leaders to come forward and talk to the young blacks that are wrong, burning down and tarring things. Hey, I got to tell you something, Sergeant Major Rawls. I am really appalled that the Black Student Union at the University of Wisconsin says that the statue of Abraham Lincoln needs to come down because he didn't do enough for blacks. As I said earlier, he lost his life. What more can a person give for a cause than to make that ultimate sacrifice of losing their life? But this is what happens when we don't do as we just shared tonight. We take the time. It didn't take long to read the entire Declaration of Independence. How many of you have done that? How many of you have done that with your family? And when we don't do that, then the next thing you know, that teacher or that college professor starts to read different letters and books and manuscripts to our children and grandchildren. And then they take to the streets and they destroy our history. It's time for us to take back our homes. It's time for us to take back our communities. It's time for us to take back our pastors. Our churches. Pastors out there, always remember the Black Road Regiment from the Revolutionary War. Time for you pastors to start cowboying up, cowgirl up. Stop with this social justice warrior nonsense. Why would our churches, why would our pastors be supporting an organization like Black Lives Matter that is an organization founded by two avowed trained Marxists? Marxism has nothing that is in coordination or believes in our Judeo-Christian faith heritage. Our Judeo-Christian faith heritage is what established these United States of America. The individual is sovereign in America because your rights come from a sovereign God, a creator God. That's what he says. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. We're getting off track here. We need to get back on track. Cheryl Six, thank you very much. I'm recovering very well, and I appreciate it. I like my shirt too, and this is the right time to wear it. I love this country. That doesn't make me an Uncle Tom, a sellout, a house N-word, a white man's porch monkey, or an Oreo. Took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of this great country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. My dad took that oath. My older brother took that oath. My nephew took that oath. My father-in-law took that oath. I have friends that took that oath. It means something to me. There is no other place in the United States of America where a kid like me can be brought up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, and have the equality of opportunity to be able to have achieved the things that I've achieved in my short 59 years of life. It's not about the color of skin, folks. It's about our character. But yet the people that want to divide us in order that they can conquer us, in order that they can collectively subjugate us, they want to continue to come back and talk about the color of skin. Even Dr. King did not want to talk about the color of skin. He wanted to talk about the content of the character of our nation, the character of each and every one of us. Let's get back to that. Lou Shields, I have a copy. And Lou, not just have a copy, read it. We are fighting pure evil. We need you. You got me. And we are fighting pure evil. There are absolutes in the world. And when you look at the chaos, the anarchy, when you look at what was going on in this autonomous zone up in Seattle, there were 2 black teenagers that were shot there. I didn't hear Black Lives Matter crying about that. We don't want any of this sanctuary city, sanctuary state, autonomous zone mess in our constitutional republic. It's time to stand up. It's time to fight. It's time, especially in the great state of Texas. Republicans, let's figure out who we are, what we stand for. You cannot win by appeasing the mob. You cannot win by trying to acquiesce, compromise, or surrender, or try to be a lesser version of the other side. Shame on Republican senators, Johnson of Wisconsin and Langford of Oklahoma. Yes, I came to Congress with James Langford out of Oklahoma back in 2010. We served in 2011, 2013. Why do we need to appease the mob and say it's time for us to get rid of Columbus Day? Do you actually think that appeasing the mob means that they're going to like you? Means that they're going to stop making demands? No. All you do is embolden them. Jefferson wrote these words because he knew the time for compromise, appeasement, negotiating, and acquiescing to Great Britain was over. It's over here in the United States of America when it comes to progressive socialism. But yet there are some Republicans that don't understand that. It's time we start to stand up. 150 black men stood up and created the Republican Party of Texas. And guess who created the first domestic terrorist organization to prevent them from being able to go out and vote for the party that they established here in Texas? Yes, you're right. The other political party, the party of the jackass, when they created the Ku Klux Klan. Now the exact same party, they're supporting Antifa, the second political domestic terrorist organization that the Democrat Party has established. It's time we start speaking in those absolutes, good and evil. What we do about this and tell us what to do, that comes from Paula Collins. Paula, what you have to do, and I tell folks, find 5 people that don't think and believe as you do and get 3. Find 5 people and start talking to them about either you support the rule of law or you support the rule of the mob. Either you believe that we're a constitutional republic or you believe in collective subjugation. Because the constitutional republic believes in the rights of the individual. We got a choice to make. It's a real simple choice. And we need to think about it on this 244th independent state of the United States of America. And again, I come back to it. What is happening in Texas is not what America believes Texas should be. An elected official just handed down executive orders, mandates, edicts, and directives. Governor Abbott, you're giving cover to these progressive socialists who are running rampant and rampaging us in all of our major population centers. You're giving them cover. Stop it, sir. Rod Skelton, thank you, brother. Hey, look, Republicans in Texas, this is that Joshua moment. Remember Joshua, his farewell address, chapter 24, verse 15, where he said, choose for yourselves today whom you shall serve, being the gods of the Amorites or the gods from across the river, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Choose for yourselves today, Republicans in Texas. What are you going to stand for? See, my mom, that good old Southern woman, Elizabeth Thomas West, taught me that a man must stand for something or else he'll fall for anything. I'm not standing for this mess. I'm going to speak out against it. Let's see if anyone else speaks out against it. And then you can understand which side of the line in the sand are you willing to stand on. And I think y'all know that's the William Barrett Travis challenge, that moment. That's where we are in Texas. Let's see. Going to have to rewatch because it keeps skipping, but I agree with every word. Thank you very much. Sorry, Renee Cook, that is skipping. I'm going to take a few more, and then we're going to allow you guys to start getting ready. I got a big grilling and chilling. Got a bunch of folks coming over. We're going to do some steak, some pork chops, some chicken, some sausage tomorrow. Have a big potluck. We're going to be outside. We're going to be thinking about Independence Day. We're not wearing masks here at my house. This is my house. And I know what I stand for. And I know what I've chosen. I know which side of the line I'm on. And Governor Abbott, if you want to come over to my house tomorrow and sit down and chat with us and tell us why you made this insidious decision, happy to hear from you. You can have a piece of steak that I throw on the grill. But I will tell you, you're not standing on the side of the line that Travis and those other 182, they stood on. You're not standing on freedom's ramparts, Governor. And I want to know who else has decided not to stand on freedom's ramparts with you. That's the choice. And that's the choice we're going to talk about here in Texas. Thank you very much. Nancy Woodrow, I don't recognize my country anymore. Nancy, it is not about not recognizing your country. You should recognize your country. You should not recognize and show regard to those people that want to destroy your country. The foundations, the fundamentals of America as a constitutional republic are still there. The fact that we have allowed over the last 60 to 70 years this progressive socialism, this leftism, this Marxism, to come in and overtake our culture, overtake our entertainment industry, overtake our media, overtake our academia, overtake our courts. This is a fight. As I said on Mark Levin, this is an ideological civil war. Choose for yourselves today whom you shall serve. Let's see. June Bartlett Glancy, thank you very much. I appreciate all of your comments and just everyone out there again. You know, I had physical therapy this morning. The old right shoulder is getting a little bit stronger and, you know, getting a little bit more range of motion. But continue to lift me up in prayer. And know how much I love this great nation. Know how much I love the state of Texas. I know some people say, hey, Carl, you've just been here 6 years. That's okay. There are a bunch of people that came here from the state where I was born and raised in Georgia. There are a bunch of people that came from the state where I went to university. That was Tennessee. But they answered the call of arms. They answered and followed the sound of the guns to fight for liberty. And they came here to Texas. But mostly, as we get ready for this Independence Day, I want to sign off by thanking those 150 black men who stood up 153 years ago on July the 4th of 1867 and created the Republican Party of Texas. Because they made it possible for me to be here where I am today. God bless you all. Happy Independence Day. And happy anniversary, 153 years, to the Republican Party of Texas. God bless you all. God bless Texas, and good night.